Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Wanted to hop on and talk some Oklahoma Sooners football on the recruiting trail after losing Williams Nwaneri to the Missouri Tigers. And I'm not going to get up here and say, oh, everything's great, right? This one really hurts. You're losing one of the best defensive linemen in the 2024 cycle. And as a Michigan fan, like I get it, we just lost Gatlin Bear, top 50 national player, to Boise State. And if for you guys who follow recruiting really closely, you kind of understand this is part of the game. You have a group of top prospects, top targets that you want. Oklahoma and that staff invested a ton of time and resources into Landon Williams Nwaneri. It sounded like they were going to get him for a while. He ends up going to Missouri. Now, what I want to talk about is how Oklahoma pivots in the position they've put themselves to pivot on the defensive line. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. It truly, especially the Oklahoma fans. I know this isn't as we're normally breaking down commitments. We're normally celebrating. This one, not as much, but the support you guys have shown truly does mean a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section how you guys are feeling. And more importantly, what defensive lineman does Oklahoma really need to turn the heat up on in this 2024 cycle? So appreciate you guys. Let's get into it. Now, to start off, I would like to say that Oklahoma's put themselves in a good spot. Like, they've had a ton of really high quality visitors on campus, especially on that defensive line where, yeah, you lose out on Williams Nwaneri, a special talent. That being said, like there are a ton of defensive linemen that are trending to Oklahoma or that Oklahoma has their hat in the ring to land. But I want to start with who they already have in this class, which two guys that I think are extremely underrated prospects. This offensive class, I mean, it's phenomenal. Like you take a look at who they have in the offensive class, like Taylor Tatum, the number one running back in the country, Devon Mitchell, Zion Kearney, Ivan Carrion, probably one of my favorite commits in this class. The offensive side of the ball, especially in the skill positions, really, really good. Brent Venables and this Oklahoma staff have put a lot of emphasis on the defensive line, going after guys like Williams Nwaneri, going after guys like David Stone. They already have two guys who are really quality players, right? Wyatt Gilmore from Minnesota, I think, is a guy that you really, really feel good about. But the guy I really just think is extremely underrated, and we kind of all agreed on this when we watched this film, Jaden Jackson, the three-star interior defensive lineman from IMG Academy. You take a look at all the programs that wanted Jaden Jackson, Ohio State, the Florida Gators, the Texas Longhorns, the Oklahoma Sooners. Being able to land Jaden Jackson gives you a baseline of feeling really good about this defensive class. And more importantly, Jaden Jackson, probably one of the more charismatic dudes. Like you read about IMG and their team, Jaden Jackson in a room full of 5-star, 4-star quality high school players is the leader of that IMG defense. So you feel good about not only the player you get in Jaden Jackson, but potentially the recruiter that you get in Jaden Jackson and kind of the locker room presence. Now, going back to what Oklahoma's done, they put themselves in a good spot. They have a lot of traction with a lot of top defensive line recruits, and now it's time to kind of turn up the heat. I mean, Williams Nwaneri committing early, I mean, it kind of allows this staff to say, all right, if Williams Nwaneri is not on our board, which I promise you they're going to continue to pursue him up until he signs that national letter of intent in December, it gives you a chance to say, all right, which guys do we really need to turn up the heat on and kind of treat as top priority targets? And looking at the list, I mean, there are a lot of guys Oklahoma is leading for, but obviously the most important one, David Stone, top 10 player nationally, one of the best defensive linemen in this 2024 cycle. I know Miami's making a push, but with Williams Nwaneri off the board, like you expect all hands on deck to land David Stone. And a lot of the history is with Oklahoma, right? A lot of these top prospects who transferred on to IMG normally commit to a school that's closer to back home. And David Stone obviously having a lot of connections to Norman. I really like where Oklahoma sits with him, and you're fending off Miami. That being said, David Stone all of a sudden becomes the top target for the Sooners to close out this 2024 class, but that's not really it. And that's kind of why I'm not pressing the panic button, because we're going to talk about a few other names on that defensive line that Brent Venables and this staff are going to be turning up the heat on as they really try to build an elite defensive line class in 2024. It's been a position that I think we saw Brent Venables not be happy with in 2022. He goes into the transfer portal, and now all his top targets are really on that defensive line. The next guy to take a look at, Nigel Smith, another top 100 prospect from Melissa, Texas. It sounds like Oklahoma's in a really good spot for Nigel Smith as well. And probably not the quality of player Williams Nwaneri is, but in terms of what he can do, very similar things. I mean, Nigel Smith's going to be a guy that you can line up on the inside, have him be a really twitched up interior defensive lineman rushing the passer, but also being able to play on the edge, right? Very similar measurables to Williams Nwaneri. Nigel Smith, I think, suddenly becomes another name that I think Sooner fans are really looking for. And then Danny Okoye, the number one player in the state of Oklahoma. This dude is very, very fun to watch on film. You talk about twitched up, freak athleticism. I expect him to be kind of a guy that Oklahoma really turns up the heat on. I know you're competing with a lot of top guys. He announced his top six. That's another name that Oklahoma really trending for. And the last guy that, I mean, we just listed three guys that probably Oklahoma has the inside track on, or at least is up there in the top candidates. Another guy to just keep an eye on, five-star defensive lineman Dominick McKinley from the state of Louisiana. A lot of buzz around the Texas Longhorns, a lot of buzz around the LSU Tigers. But if there is another team lurking for Dominick McKinley, I do think it's the Oklahoma Sooners. And to kind of close on what I think of this staff, and I see a lot of comments in terms of like this Sooner staff not getting it done. You take a look back at 2023, they got it done in a lot of recruiting battles. In 2024, maybe a slower start, but you look at the traction that Oklahoma has gotten with a lot of these top prospects. It's put themselves in positions to, you miss out on a guy like Williams Nwaneri, and it absolutely sucks. Again, as a Michigan fan, missing out on Gatlin Bear, it's not great. That being said, better than what Michigan's done. And quite frankly, Oklahoma's put themselves in a spot where, all right, we lose out on Williams Nwaneri. You cross them off the board. Now we got four quality guys, all top 150 national ranked dudes, 2 5-stars that you can really turn the heat up on and kind of make a priority. So you're looking at this Oklahoma class from like a big point of view. I think you're feeling still pretty good about what this group can be. And again, we've said this time and time again. If Oklahoma can put it on the field in 2023, you've heard a lot of commits in a world of college football where there's a lot of new coaches, a lot of changing. I think a lot of these recruits are just waiting to see what these programs look like in 2023. Alice Robinson, 5-star cornerback who's committed to Georgia, continues to say, let's just wait and see how Miami does. I think a lot of other guys are kind of also in that boat. And if you kind of put together a season that I think Oklahoma can put on in 2023, I think you get the spatulas out late, but you can also look to close on a couple of these top defensive linemen. So to kind of round out, like Williams Nwaneri, losing him, it absolutely sucks. There's no way around that. That being said, the Sooners have put themselves in a really good spot to go out and land some top guys. So, yes, it sucks. I wouldn't hit the panic button so far. Again, appreciate you guys, Sooner fans. You guys have been absolutely awesome. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.